celebration. So they were innovative. I think there were a lot of very incredible or interesting claims. I don't believe that we should be blinded by the glitter. We should really try to go into it and read more into the details. But some of the approaches they took were very innovative. That's my view.
Thank you. Like, seeing through the hype is particularly difficult with AI because I think you can buy a dishwasher now with AI. Naeem, it's over to you for another question, please.
Thank you. So the next question comes from someone who has already done several exits within this particular space. So I'm going to pass forward to Angelo Daly, Chief Scientist at Online from Malta.
Thank you. I've been applying AI for more than 20 years to different industries, and I feel that the UAE has a good balance between innovation and governance. Now, my focus has been on applying trustworthy AI so that we can apply AI to high-impact applications where it can cause financial damage or harm to people if you don't get it right. One question, I'm going to cheat, I'm going to ask you two questions. One is, how does the UAE ensure a future proof of its investments in AI since there is rapid change all the time? And the second is also, how do we ensure that, the collaboration, what is the approach to collaborate between the UAE and other countries in AI? For example, as we've seen both with examples like DeepSeek and also my favorite, the potential of the UAE to become a hub for chip manufacturing.
Thank you. So to answer your first question, it's about what your North Star is. There's a lot of hype, there's a lot of promise of AI. You can look at AI to solve every and any problem. So, unfortunately, as you said, you mentioned the dishwasher and AI. Today, every conversation I have is AI can do everything. But the fact of the matter is AI can still not do many things. So there are certain things it does well, there are many things it doesn't do well. So our view, the UAE, to try to ignore the hype and really focus on what matters, is we have a North Star, which is we want to deploy AI for things that improve quality of life. So if you focus on quality of life improvement, you will always veer away from things that are going to cause controversy or harm people, which I think is the first thing that governments need to do. The second is, it's not about economic gains. It's not about improving productivity. It's about deploying AI where, first, the stack itself is ready. Second is the optimization has a lot of value for a majority of your population. And then third comes the economics. And let me give you an example, whether you flew in from Abu Dhabi airport or Dubai airport, there's a service that exists in the UAE called the Smart Tunnel Service, where you can actually zoom across the airport and not even pull out your passport from your pocket. So if you have a residency in the UAE, you can just walk across the airport, you don't engage with any human being, you don't wait any single line. That is a very good application of the technology. Any country on earth that you go to, there is an agent or an officer waiting there with a webcam that tells you to look into the camera, then sends your face to a facial recognition software, and then tries to see if you're registered as a criminal somewhere. He might be smiling, he might be angry. There are different levels of service there. But if I'm able to give you a service that's so smooth, that's so frictionless, you understand that this is a value add rather than a hindering application of AI. This is how we're seeing it here in the UAE. Now, on the other part of the question, there's a constant need for us to increase awareness, for us to engage the public, and for us to try to bring people from around the world with their ideas to the UAE to help us navigate better the unknowns that we have around us. And this conference itself is very important for that specific reason. You will come here, you will hear different perspectives, you will see what the UAE has to offer, and you will build the future of AI with us.
Brilliant, thank you very much. My goodness, there's so much to talk about. Reducing friction and using AI to help that really does make quite a lot of sense, actually. All right, we have another question, I think Gillian. Where's Gillian?
Over here, to your right, everyone else is left. We have Edgar Masri, he's the CEO of Liquid. Thank you so much for joining us. A great question. He makes GPU clusters more efficient and at the edge and on premise. What question do you have for the guys?
Thank you. Your Excellency, with the deployment of systems that are as efficient as DeepSeek and others that you just mentioned, do you expect enterprises, whether here in the UAE or Gulf countries or worldwide, to start implementing AI inferencing at the edge or on-premise, or just demand better pricing from cloud providers?
Why did you add or? It could be both. You can do both depending on what you're doing as a company or as a government agency, depending on where most of the value is going to be created. The future of AI in some way, shape or form is going to be dependent on its ability to be deployed on the edge. So on the edge of the devices that are the medium between the human and the AI capabilities. So I think being on the edge is necessary. It's something that will happen in the near future for most of the models, right? So Qualcomm is doing a lot on that, Samsung is making a lot of investments on that front, and I'm sure that many companies, whether it's in this room or outside, are doing incredible work there. But I think it's going to be both. If we want this technology to proliferate, if we want AI to be part of each and every one of us' lives, we have to make sure that it's also economical in terms of the ability to access it with a good economic value and to create economic output from it. Think about it this way. If you were to look at the cost of social media, why was social media something that proliferated our lives and today becomes something that we are addicted to? It's because it started being free of charge. You did not have to pay to access any social media platform 10, 15 years ago, right? Maybe some of them were there and you had to pay for them. But over time they died out, and the ones that offered free services did better. They offered limited things at first. First it was, I don't know, you put your status, and then became you post your pictures. And then they started adding certain services on top. The same will happen to AI. It's going to be access to certain models for free, then their capabilities are going to get better, and you're seeing that with OpenAI and ChatGPT, right? The models that you have access to right now for free are so much better than the models that we started to have access to. So I think price is a point that will be improved as economies of scale improve, but I also think that we're going to have a lot of things on the edge, because latency is a big issue.
Brilliant, thank you. Naeem, we'll come to you for one more question, but first, let's go back over to Gillian, because I think you may find somebody else. Is that right?
We're going to hand it over
Oh,
to
no.
Naeem.
We are going to hand over to Naeem. I apologise.
I'm going to ping pong it back over you.
Your Excellency, you talked about the seamless solution and walking through the airport. So how about going to Greece? Because my next question comes from that particular land, from Dr. Yanis, Association of Computing and Machinery from Greece.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Many people say that access to AI infrastructures and services should be a fundamental human right in the same way we have access to roads and streets and so on, and shouldn't be just a privilege of a few that are cognitively and financially able to have such access. How would we ensure that? And in that sense, how can we have some of the very big, very expensive, very energy-hungry infrastructures be in the public sphere, and not have all of them, whether they are open or not, in the hands of high-tech industry only?
There are so many ways I can answer this question. I need to think of the right way. I think, we make these statements thinking that we live in an ideal world, that having access to AI is a fundamental human right. But the reality is, today there's a lot of money being burned. And I use the word burned because if your model, whether it costs $1 billion or 100 million or 100 billion, is not the model that actually people use at one point in time, that money completely goes down the drain. So for it to become a fundamental human right, it needs to be something that can be offered or subsidized at small amounts of money or at affordable rates. Today the rates are not affordable, so I think this conversation is a bit premature. We should have this conversation once we get to a point where, it's like Google search. At one point of time, Google search was very expensive even for Google to provide that service. Today, each search costs a very small fraction of $1 or a dirham or whatever currency that you use. And it makes sense for you to offer it as a fundamental human right. Today, anyone can access Google to a certain extent and get their queries answered and get their search result to come on the screen. So once it reaches that point, I think it makes sense for us to convince all the different players to make it free. Today, I think that is a premature conversation because these models are still being developed, the capabilities are still being understood of what it can do or what it can't do, where it can be deployed, where it can't be deployed, and the economics really don't make sense. I know that wasn't the answer you wanted, but hopefully next year the prices are going to be better.
I have another question at the back of the room over here, right over here. I'm going to wave over to you. Yes? I have Marina here. She is the chair of an AI company that works in aviation, education, amongst other things. And you have an interesting question here.
So good afternoon. Thank you very much for welcoming us and answering all of our questions. It has been said in the newspapers that AI will become a major subject in schools and a major part of education. How are we working towards that and towards not discriminating teenagers who are the main brains actually, and not depriving them from access actually to creations? What is being done actually from the side of the government to nurture all this and to recruit these talents no matter what their age is? And my second question is as well correlated. AI is taking over and it has been decades. If you remember Stanley Kubrick's movie, The Odyssey, and how the robot took over and how he had to shut it actually. So we all obviously know where this will lead. But what are the actions we are taking actually to protect the intellectual property and especially of those generations that are growing?
Sorry, just on, we'll go back to the teenagers question. Not discriminate against teenagers because they are in the higher end of their education versus the younger generation, you mean?
I mean, they are the brains actually creating. They are born and with a built-in capacity of thinking AI. So what are we able to do actually to nurture that? I understand there are legal maybe, how do we say that, adjustments that need to be done and everything. But from our side, what are we able to do as education advisors, as the government? How can we work hand in hand actually to overcome that, especially that all the ideas are with them and the creations?
So I think there are a few statements that are part of that question. The first is that teenagers do not currently use AI, which I think is blatantly false. I'm pretty sure most teenagers completely depend on AI for their homework today or to a large extent, and use AI day to day more than we expect. But the second is, sorry, you wanted to say something? Yeah, go on.
Yeah, sorry, this is not what I meant. Not the use of AI. Okay, I'll give you, may I just give a personal example?
Yes.
My son has created something much more powerful than ChatGPT. He was only 9 years old. Okay, I can tell you the hurdles that we have faced. People discriminating him for his age, not allowing him to access certain places. At the same time, we had as well people who were really interested in getting in touch with him to try and take the ideas. So those two questions: how can we? And I'm sure that there are lots of other children and teenagers who are great creators, very highly IQ'd children and teenagers. How can we help them and how can we protect their intellectual property from being stolen by others? Sorry if I was...
Yeah, no, that's clear. I have no doubt that your child has done that and that they're a prodigy. The problem is, when you make a statement, ChatGPT is not an intellectual issue today. Today, it's a resource issue. The fact that they need to raise 30 billion to spend on training, on collecting data, on RLHF and other elements to actually build these models in a way that we can use them is the issue. So I think the biggest discriminatory factor when it comes to your teenager is the fact that they will not have the resources that OpenAI will have for other companies. And here they have two trajectories. Either to raise investments and follow the route of venture capital and raising investments and building that model, which can work, but as you said, they'll be discriminated against because of their age. The second is to go to work for one of these companies until they are able to afford to build something on their own and build a reputation. That's a second route. But it's very difficult even for startups. So I'm not talking about teenagers, I'm talking about even adults or anyone that wants to compete. It's very difficult for you to compete today if you don't have the resources. Even a company like DeepSeek, if, again, I'm saying claimed achievements, if the claimed achievements are true, you still need $6 million. You still need 200 people. You still need 2,000 GPUs. It's very difficult for someone to do it, that does not have the resources to at least put that, right? So the game, in my opinion, is a game not of building models. It's a game of deploying value from these models. Creating the layer on top that can interact with people, that can create value. And one thing I will say, whether it's for your teenager or for others, is I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing multi-billion-dollar corporations that have 1 or 2 employees. Because we will see value created with much less people. And this is the promise of AI. Now, when it comes to what government is doing, we are deploying AI in schools. We, are trying to get our young generation to actually use this technology, understand this technology, understand the moral implications, understand what's good and bad, and really be a part of that future in a way that does not make them always feel conflicted with what the promise of AI is and where their morals are taking them. On the contrary, actually make them become an active part of building that future. And second is for young people that want to build but don't have the infrastructure, we created a center called the Coders HQ in the UAE, where we as a government invested in the GPUs, and we said if you want to use it to a certain level, you can use it for free, and you can actually train or inference on it, see what you're able to build, and hopefully if you want to create a company out of this, you can use the infrastructure the government has created, and if you're wanting to get more, you have to pay for the use. So instead of actually investing in the hardware, we will do it for you. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. That actually sounds incredibly encouraging. To be able to get one step on the business ladder, no matter your age, is an incredibly valuable contribution. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and audience, for your incredible questions as well. A really excellent round of applause then for Minister Omar Sultan Al Alama. Thank you so much. My goodness, we're so glad to be here at the AI Everything Summit, and thank you so much once again, Minister, for coming along. Despite the traffic, you made it, and we hope that you enjoyed it, audience, as well. Right. Well, what's next? I think, are we going to reset the stage, or no? I don't think we need to. That means I read the next bit out. There we go. Audience, by the way,